What is up, y'all? Hello. You know how excited I get every time a talk show episode is released, and today I am introducing you to one of my internet friends. I know I tell you guys all the time that I haven't met some of my guests in real life, and that has been the beauty of the internet lately, but Hannah is a woman that I met 2 years ago now, and we've kept in touch over the course of the last couple years. We've really seen each other grow into the women we've become. We've seen each other grow into the business owners that we have become, and it's been such an honor and such a joy to share the world with her and share life with her and sharing experiences with her, and I just adore her so much, and I think you're really going to enjoy today's episode. As always, so much beautiful wisdom that comes through my guests all the time. Peep the little intro and then dive into the episode, and of course, comment down below what you think.
A few months ago, I was invited to write in the multi-author book Legacy Speaks, and there was something about this invitation that spoke to me so deeply, and I jumped at this opportunity to create something so special and so powerful with a group of extraordinary women. The intention behind the book is to share our legacy, right? And it was very clear to me from the beginning that it wasn't my legacy I wanted to share. I wanted to share the story of my mother's legacy and how it lives within me. My mother's illness and passing taught me how to live, how to grieve, and how to heal, as well as how to die. Her illness for me was really a journey into the underworld, and there I felt more pain and love than I'd ever experienced. But as I re-emerged, I realized I had gifts and lessons, and I was a completely different person. Writing this chapter for me was cathartic. I cried and I cried. And I released in places that I didn't realize that I held. And then the beautiful thing is that my father edited the chapter and he cried. And he agreed that this was a story that needed to be told. So I hope that it is as healing for you reading as it was for me writing.
Beautiful. Okay. Hi, Hannah. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I've been really excited about this all week. So
I know. I can't wait to see what channels through you. I think it's going to be such a great conversation, but I figured we could start with just having everyone get to know you. Like, who are you? Where are you located in the world? And what are some fun things that you like to do?
Okay, so I'm Jana Alonso. I am half English, half Spanish, but I live in Spain because it's better weather. I say this and it's been raining all week, and feel like I can't leave my house, but usually it's wonderful weather. A few fun things about what I like to do. Wow, do you know what? I love dancing. I'm quite a hermit. I quite like being in my home, reading, discovering new things, being in nature, walking, looking after my animals. I suppose those are my favorite things. But the biggest thing for me is dance. I absolutely adore dancing. That's something that is like I'm hugely passionate about. And then obviously my work, which is what I eat, breathe, and live. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I haven't been dancing in a little while, like even since my move. So I feel like I need to get back in my little dance party breaks. And what is it that you do for work exactly, if you'd like to share that with everyone?
Yeah, amazing. So I'm an integrative healing expert. And so this means that I use multiple modalities to teach people to become self-healers, right? And I always talk about actually becoming the alchemist of your existence, because I really truly believe in the center of our pain and struggles, there is a gift, or there is a place of pure potential to transform this into something more incredible that you can ever imagine. The problem is that people don't have the map, right? So we have these struggles and these things that happen in our lives, but we don't know how to transform that. We don't know how to alchemize that. And so my greatest passion is not just supporting people in that space, but actually educating. right? Educating people about making that jump and how to actually become empowered in your own life. And it was because of this I founded the School of Integrative Healing. And here we actually take people through a process, but alongside the process, we teach people, well, women, the tools and techniques that you need to self heal and actually become the alchemist of your existence. And we go into, I talked about multiple modalities, but we explore anything from relationships to shamanic medicine to hormone healing to nutrition. We do full body analyses. We look at emotional release, a lot of trauma informed work, right? And the end goal of this is just to make your life more and more beautiful and actually be living in your potential, right? Because very often through our conditioning and all of these things, we don't realize how expansive and wonderful we truly are, right? So it's my purpose to really reconnect people with that and shed away all those things that actually aren't true, those experiences and beliefs that we've developed over this life, other lives, if people watching this are open to that, generational lineages and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, I think there's always so much, and I feel like it's very common that in the internet world nowadays that people talk about, healing and deconditioning and unprogramming the mind and the body and all of that and trauma work. But I still feel that there's not a really good definition out there, and it can sometimes scare people to be like, trauma, I don't have that. But how do you define that? And, how do you define that? How do you allow someone to really just like open up to that when they come to you? Because I feel like anyone watching might be like, I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah, all of these words, what does that actually mean? Completely. And there is so much stuff around trauma now, and I think that's good, and it's everything. It's kind of got the positive and it's got the side that's more confusing. But for me, the trauma, the way that I define it, okay, and there's so many definitions, is when you live an event, right, where it's emotionally too big for you to process in that moment, okay, and then what that does is unprocessed emotion stays in the body, and then that's connected to a pattern in the unconscious. So for me, trauma work is two-leveled. It's clearing from the body emotional energy and memories, because we hold the memories of every single thing that we experience in our body. A lot of people don't realize that. And then actually on the level of the mind and our unconscious, we actually have a memory of absolutely every single thing that happened. And so when we live a traumatic moment, in other words, a moment that is very emotionally intense, too intense for us to cope with, that very often leaves a belief that, limiting belief when we talk about this, or a behavioral pattern that doesn't serve us. And so when we talk about the trauma work, it's not, I think this is another preconception, isn't it? Everyone thinks it's got to be abuse or war or any of these things. And we tend to feel guilty for the traumas we have, because we're like, in our head, we tell ourselves they're not big enough. But this is so incorrect, because from the moment before birth, we're experiencing things, right? And it's every single person will have moments where the emotion was too big to be processed. Mostly as well because we're living in a world where we're not taught emotional intelligence, we're not taught to feel, we're taught to avoid. So all those moments where we think we're being strong, very often we're kind of keeping that within our body, right? So it can be, let me give you an example. So for me, a thing that came up for me, a memory that came up for me in my body that was causing kind of tension in my body and also limiting beliefs, was a memory of when I started school. I was the youngest in the year. So if I'd been a day younger, I'd have been in the class below, and I was really, really tiny. Like, I'm a small person anyway, but I was really tiny because I was a year younger than all of these kids. I was, and going to school and feeling so tiny, right? And so overwhelmed and so not able to keep up. That left emotional energy in my body, and that blocked things for me. And it also left these beliefs of, not feeling that I was big enough or I was allowed to sit at the table with all the big kids. And so that showed up in my business and life. And working through that has allowed blockages in my business and life. I don't want to go on to this because this is a whole different train of thought as well. But when you do the trauma work, it unblocks your life as well as helps you clear physical ailments, you know, so it's extraordinary.
Yeah, oh, I love that. And I love how you defined trauma, because I think everybody has had some experience at one point in their life that feels emotionally overwhelming. And you're entirely correct. That is just like, we are not taught how to emotionally process, which really I think is a part of the human experience. And I'm really curious to know, in your own words, like, what does being human mean to you in today's modern day world?
What a great question. Do you know, I saw the name of this being human. I just love that because I think we need more of that, especially in, I'm going to answer this in a second, but especially in the personal development world, there's a tendency, I see there's kind of like a tendency to go towards everything is always perfect, like wanting to be in this kind of always shining state, right? And as much as these spiritual truths are true, very often we forget the human part, and that's actually where avoidance can come in. So being human for me is allowing yourself to feel the full range of anything that happens in your life, right? And I saw this, the author of Pussy, you've probably read it, haven't you?
I have.
She writes this great thing.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, I let myself make mistakes fabulously or something. I can't remember the exact quote, but that's part of being human, because we've come here to learn, and we learn through experiencing. But because we live in this very polished kind of Instagram world where we want to appear amazing and perfect at all times, very often we're judging ourselves and we're not letting ourselves experience. We're expecting ourselves to know everything before actually having the experience teaching us. So for me, being human is allowing yourself to experience every emotion as they come up, and also allowing yourself to make mistakes and learn and not be perfect, and kind of let life teach you, really, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
If we knew it all, we wouldn't have come. So it's allowing life to teach you and to feel every emotion. And there's so many levels to being human, but I suppose there's the first two things that kind of come to mind.
I like that. And I feel like life is ever teaching all of us in every moment, if we allow ourselves to just like open up to it. And I truly believe that this information and people watching this show are probably drawn to it because they're going through their own life teachings, and they're just like, I don't freaking know how to deal with this. And I think it was another episode where someone was just like, being human is painful, but it's also the most joyful experience on the planet in the world. And I was like, ooh, that one lands, because it can be painful. And a lot of the work that you do is helping people deal with like those emotions and learning the correct tools and being with themselves. So I'm curious to know, like, what piece of advice would you give someone that's watching this show right now who's like, okay, I'm in a life experience, but I don't want to deal with it, and that resistance piece that you're talking about?
Oh, such a good question. If you're going through something right now, I think the very most important thing to remember is that whatever's happening to you right now, and this sounds really cliche, is happening for you and not to you. And this sounds, so many people say this and it sounds like so rich, doesn't it? Like, you don't feel my pain, you don't know what it's this. And I think it's, do you know what my number one advice is? Actually get mentors and people that know how to work through these things, because very often we want to do it alone. Right. And then actually we're making life so much more difficult for ourselves, because there are so many specialists out there that can help you transform pain into something purpose, but something beautiful, or something you can't even imagine. And it kind of reminds me of my story, like, you know, why did I get into this? And it initially started because at 19 I had so many mental health diagnoses, and I was truly in this place of my life, and maybe trigger warning here, of my mental health had been so bad, I really got to this point, if nothing changes, I don't see the point of living. And I felt like that for a few years, and I did very much the conventional stuff, the medication, and I'm not against medication. Medication saved me at one point, okay? But it didn't actually get me further than survival, right?
And at that time, if someone had told me, Hannah, you're going to be so grateful for this. This is going to be the making of you. I'd have been like, you're all crazy. But I kept searching for answers, right? I kept searching for answers. I kept bringing in mentors. And that experience has led me to doing what I did now and I do now. And the second thing that I experienced was being a full-time carer for my mum when she was terminal with cancer, and actually helping her through the dying process. And that was the most painful experience I've ever lived, and a long period of time. It was highly traumatic as well. And again, the way I got through that with with a healthy body as well, was seeking help, was empowering myself, to search for answers. Isn't always the right thing, but tools to use to alchemize the pain, to make sure the pain doesn't get stuck in my body, and actually transform this very painful experience into something with purpose. And it's funny, the line that you've just said, because we're releasing a book called Legacy Speaks in May 7th, and I write about my mum's passing. And I write that, I say, mum leaving teaches me that life is so shockingly and deeply painful, but also the most beautiful thing that I've been gifted with. And it's kind of that duality, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when we can even be in that duality and we can allow that pain to be, it's easier to look for answers. It's easier to come out of that, right?
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like that will resonate with so many people watching. And I love that your own journey really allowed you to find your purpose. And I believe that purpose and career are often intertwined in our human world. And so I'm curious to know, for you, what's your definition of purpose and career and success?
Wow. I think it really blends together for me. And I think purpose is different for every single person. I believe that we all have a divine genius, and we all have something that, as humans, we work together in synergy. It's not like these separate people, and we're all born with a passion. We're all born with something that's kind of signaling to us what we're here to do. And for me, my purpose is really doing what I'm doing right now. And so that's become my career. But I didn't set out to have a career. That was never my intention. My intention was just to follow what my heart guided me to, my life's work, really. And so I think, if possible, if we can make our career align with our purpose, I mean, that's really where we want to be going, isn't it? That shows us that we're in a good direction. And success is going to look different for every single person. This is the same as we all have a different genius. We all have something to give to the world, and we all have different things that make us feel complete, that make us feel whole, that make us feel lit up. So for me, success, there is an element of success in a career purpose where, I want to be getting my message out there. I want to be supporting the women that I support in a really powerful way. I created this school for a reason, right? Because I saw there was a need for that. But it's also looking after myself successfully. That is success. Maintaining healthy relationships, not because you have to get married by 30 or all of these beliefs that we're kind of thrown, but because that's an intrinsic part of my life, right? Success for me sometimes looks like making sure that my new dog doesn't pee on the floor. Like, sometimes successes are really small,
Yeah.
But it's like we have big successes, and you have those littler successes that really build up your life. And so I think success is, and I haven't actually really thought about this before, success isn't just career. It isn't just get married by a certain age. It isn't these things that you've got to tick off, right? That society tells you. It's actually what you desire, and kind of aligning with your desires and creating, I suppose for me, creating a life full of purpose, a life where I feel full of vitality, where I feel well, and I also feel like I'm aligned with my life's work. That for me is a successful life. And for me, that can look like building a business and supporting so many women across the world, but for someone else, that could be maintaining a beautiful garden, or having an incredible family, or all of these things. That's going to look so different. And I think it's important that we each individually define what a success is for us, instead of following anyone else's roadmap. Because when you follow someone else's roadmap, you might get there and realize that actually it feels really empty because that wasn't the map for your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I so resonate with like following a path, and then you get almost to the top of that path, and then you're just like, this brings me nothing but a paycheck. And I feel a lot of people experience that. And I'm always grateful that my soul somehow knew before I did, that it surrounded me by people and showed me that there was other things. But I was definitely following, like, especially here in the States, like corporate America world and retail, where I was just like, my next thing was to go to New York and be in corporate. And I was just like, no, that's not what I want to do. So I'm curious to know, for you, whatever you've encountered or the wisdom that I know you carry, and if someone's watching this and is just like, okay, I do have a different desire for life, like, what piece of advice would you give them to just follow what lights them up? Because it can lead them to their purpose or a new career, but I think at the root of that, it's like that deep desire, right?
I could not agree more. I actually genuinely believe that what you're passionate about is your path.
Yeah.
Like, I really believe that it's that simple, and we overcomplicate it because we're born with that divine intelligence, and that's a signal. You love this, go that way. And I suppose the biggest piece of advice is that you have to silence the voices outside you to listen to your own voice. And that sounds really simple. In practice, it's really difficult and it takes time. And so it's giving yourself grace, right? Finding your purpose isn't like, oh, I woke up, like, solved, tick. It's like an unraveling. For me, kind of similar. I never went into corporate, but I was very much a good girl. And that's kind of one of the things I struggled with, especially in school and in university. I was so focused. I studied psychology, so super focused, and really, really pushed myself, but I was just jumping through loops for society. And there was this one moment where I got the best results in all of my final exams at the university. I was awarded all of these awards, and all of this hard work that I've been putting there, and all the negative consequences it had on my health because of that. And when I got the results, I felt nothing. And it was the most terrifying moment of my life, because I was like, I've been following this path that isn't for me. I have pushed to the point of making myself, I was on antidepressants. I had really bad drinking habits. I was really struggling. I had an eating disorder, and I achieved my goal and I felt nothing. And I made a decision in that point to book and this is obviously quite just drastic. If you're watching this, you don't need to book a one-way flight to Australia like I did. But that in my 21-year-old mind was like, this is the solution. And there's a point for me telling this, because at university, I'd had everyone's voices around me. They were like, do a scholarship, like, do a PhD. Like, that's the socially desirable thing to do. My parents' voices, my Spanish family's voices, because Spain has a whole different culture as well, right? And so they're kind of, this is a big generalization, but it's very much like, just get a good job and stay in that good job until you die, basically. Yeah. And I felt that I needed to really separate myself from that. And so I actually at that age did it physically. And I traveled for 5 years before figuring out what I even wanted to start going into. And this is my journey, so you don't have to do it this way. But what it did allow, right, was for me to tap into what I believe, what I like, who I am. And I didn't give myself pressure nor a timeline to connect with it, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's not like, okay, I'm just going to tap into my desires and next week I'll have figured it all out. Like, life also has a divine intelligence where there is divine timing, right? And so there's an element of trusting that, and there's an element of trusting your path. But the first thing is to learn and practice listening to yourself. That is the most essential things. And Shay always says, I got a ping, I got a ping. And this makes me laugh. I tell everyone this. Shay, like, I don't know who Shay is. She talks about pings, but it's amazing because it's like body pings, right?
Yeah.
But you have to do the practices to start learning and understanding and feeling the body pings, because we're not taught that either, are we?
No, for sure not. Yeah, like now now it feels like someone throws like a book at my head or something, or my body, and it's just like, oh my God, this is what I have to do. And I'm just like downloaded with like all of this information. And I'm like, okay, I have to act on it. And if I can't act on it in the moment, like I just write it down, and then I'm like, okay, I'll be able to act on this at some point, because it always comes back around too. I always feel that like your intuition, your soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is always guiding us. And so I like that. And slowing down enough too, to I think like listen, right?
Huge point. Yeah. In everything, right? Let yourself slow down.
Yeah, which I think last year was the first year ever in my life that I had so much time and freedom to myself. I mean, yes, we were in a pandemic, but then also it was like very nourishing in so many ways, because I like really truly went all in on my business. I had left my version of a 9-to-5 job here in the States, and I was just like, oh my God. And then the world shut down. So I had nothing but time to really sit there and figure out what I wanted. And through that, I think I got really clear on my desires and like who I was, and did a lot of growth last year as well. But I turned to ritual a lot, and I find ritual is a beautiful way to slow down, and a beautiful way to just like honor the process of whatever you're wanting to cultivate in life. So what is a ritual that you really like to do that brings, that stillness or joy or connection in your life?
There's so many, aren't there? But I think a ritual that I have before even starting work is I can show you, I've got my altar here. I light a candle before everything that I do for work. I smudge and I sit with what I'm about to do, and I'll do a little prayer, whether it's working a session with a client and connecting to kind of divine guidance and actually praying for their healing and their highest good and everyone's highest good, or before even this, connecting with what connecting with what needs to be spoken, right? And actually like a higher power within that. So just those moments of lighting a candle and sitting in silence before doing something, that little pause allows for whatever needs to drop in. And it's a ritual now. So it's like a habit that's been built to stop, right? Before doing anything, before coming to my work day, before taking a session on. Shay also works a lot with menstruation, I know. And I think when I bleed, that's like my biggest time for ritual, especially as we bleed, we slow down, right? And so this tends to be the time where I kind of assess the month before, but also start to call in new things. And I do a lot of rituals around my menstrual blood and what I want to be calling in. But this can look really different every month. And I think ritual can sound quite frightening if we haven't done rituals before, and they can be really simple. So lighting a candle, or even a ritual, is getting in the shower and imagining the water cleaning you every time you shower, right? It's just like a tiny little practice that kind of grounds you. You talked about even earlier dance breaks. That's ritual, isn't it?
It is,
right? Or like little bounds.
That's when like everything can be a ritual. It's just what allows you to connect back to yourself, your breath, stillness, all of it. Encompass all of it, even if you are moving.
Exactly. Do you know what's kind of great? I don't know if you could consider this a ritual, but having animals for me has been a huge thing in this, because animals aren't in a rush.
No.
My animals aren't. All they do is like nap and snore, right?
Yeah.
So my dog snores really loudly, but I find it super calming, even just breaking my work day and kind of sitting with them, because it's like they take you, it's almost like your breath goes with theirs.
Yeah. They're almost always have a relaxed nervous system, animals. And Yeah, and they can feel very grounding. I've never thought of that, but I think, yeah, they're for sure never in a rush. They're just like there to enjoy everything.
Mm-hmm. Just like, okay, nap, snack. Oh, look, a bird. That's
Yeah.
all my animals do. Like, it's just great. Like,
Yeah.
look at you.
No, they have the life. I know. I like now that I'm living in Southern California, my grandparents have a little dog, and I'll help take care of him. And just like you literally just sunbathe, and then I take you on a walk, and it's beautiful outside. And I was like, you have the life, Santana.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of that. I think so many people are going to take away from that. And I want to give them the opportunity to really like pick your brain and some of the things and the mentors and modalities that you always turn to. I like to leave people with that. So, my next question is more to get to know you a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe anybody watching this show really does enjoy learning. And I also know you're a projector in human design, and we love learning. And so, what is a current favorite learning rabbit hole that you're on, and how did you get led down it?
This is actually linked to what we were just talking about. So, if you follow me on social media, you're probably bored of me talking about my adopted pit bull, but is relevant. I took in, so I've mentioned already that I work with trauma and trapped emotions and all of these things. And so recently I felt the call to adopt a dog, and I wanted to take in a dog that isn't easily adopted, right? So many families want puppies, and I was like, okay, I actually want a dog that isn't as likely to be adopted, right? And so as the universe does, a dog was put into my life. Like, my partner always laughs. He's like, I'm like, it's the projector way. I say a thing and then I don't leave my house, and a week later I have it. And I'm like, don't have the energy to do it, by the way. So that's the way I decide my life. So anyway, this dog came into my life, this pit bull, and she was less likely to be adopted, not only because she is a potentially dangerous dog, so in Spain you need a license to have her, but because she's nearly 7 years old, and the first 5 years of her life was a lot of trauma, right? And so she's a highly traumatized dog. And when I got home, I realized the extent of trauma in animals, the extent of the emotional world in animals. And actually, the rabbit hole that I dived into is trauma healing in dogs, which has been so fascinating because I work a lot with trauma in humans, but with a dog, you can't talk to them.
Yeah.
So all of the therapies that I've been exploring and practicing have been kind of skipping the mind. So you're going straight to the body. And I have just been astounded, like completely astounded at how powerful it is at clearing stuff in her. But not only that, clearing stuff in my dad, my sister, myself, my partner, if you did, not everyone. And that's been such it's life teaching you, isn't it? You adopt a dog and they take you to a new modality. So the new modality that I'm obsessed with is it's called the emotional code, and it's releasing trapped emotions from the body without getting into the story, without re-traumatizing by repeating stories. It's going straight using muscle testing to release emotions from the body, and it's just been so life-changing on so many levels. My partner laughs because I'm like, want to learn about this thing, and then suddenly I have all the books about dogs and trauma and emotional release techniques, like and in my bath reading them. But that's definitely the latest rabbit hole that I've been down. And I'm really grateful for it, because I think as a practitioner as well, my commitment isn't only to my own healing work, but everyone that works with me and all the students that study in integrative healing, right? So it's always bringing new things and new modalities that can really help other people as well.
100%. Oh, I love that. Oh, your doggy's so lucky to have you. I'm gonna have to look this up. It's called Emotional Code. Or
The Emotional Code. Yeah, there's a book called The Emotional Code. It's incredible. I could not recommend it more. And you can even do it on your animals. And so people tend to think that animals don't experience things, but they do, and they keep it in their body just like us. And And that's been a very humbling experience as well, to see that so much firsthand. And that's been really connecting to like nature and all of these beautiful things in life as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, we've adopted cats mostly who have, who were out on the streets, and then they came in, and I feel like cats, more like cats and dogs, they get abandoned and whatnot also, because, and they are so sad and skittish, and then they don't trust people. So I totally can see that. And I love when you discover something that just, you're just like, oh my gosh, this is eye-opening.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, for real. Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. Thank you. What about a favorite mentor right now? Whether you're directly working with them or you just like to soak up their knowledge.
You mean people that I like to kind of take in their work, or someone that I'm working with?
Either
okay,
one.
Great question.
Yeah.
God, there's so many people that, I mean, I think Shay mentioned this, being a projector means that we love learning. And taking in so much information. I used to work, well, I still work at the university, but the season's kind of shut, the trimester's finished. And the director of the university was telling me that I'm like an encyclopedia, because I've just like learned so many things. So pleasure work, the author of Pussy, Regina, I can't say her last name, I'm dyslexic,
I think it is.
Something like this. She's extraordinary. She's doing incredible work for women. Peter Levine, incredible work for trauma people. Bessel van der Kolk, seriously dyslexic. Bessel van der, why don't I have like better names of people that I admire? He does incredible work with mental health and trauma. Dr. Bradley Nelson, a lot of powerful, amazing work, emotional work. Bruce Lipton, incredible work connecting. Well, he does the biology of belief, so he connects kind of, do you know what, the mentors, the people that I really love are the people that connect the woo-woo, for lack of a better word, with the science, right? And you show actually how intertwined it is. And Bruce Lipton does that. Peter Levine does that. He's like cutting edge trauma work now, nervous system work. But the start of his books is exploring the animal world and actually understanding trauma from looking at animals, and also shamanic medicine, right? And that's the lineage that I follow. I do a lot with shamanic medicine. So I love all of those big names out there that are kind of integrating modalities, right? So I started off as a psychologist, and I finished my undergraduate, and I was like, I'm still seriously depressed. And I was like, I have no answers. That we have to bring things together instead of like, I'm right and you're wrong. It's like, actually, no, it's unity, right? And actually getting out of this picture of right and wrong. So there's some of my favorite kind of pioneers at the moment. And then mentor on a personal level, I suppose the most trainings, the most work that I do with is Chris Waters, and she runs the Spirit of the Inca. It's a year process where you really dive into shamanic medicine, and that would probably be the training that I've done that's most changed my life. And I still follow her work. I still go to her workshops. Because there's always so much more, right?
Oh yeah. It's like never ending. Forever a student of life.
Absolutely. And I love her because, I don't know if I can say this, but feels good because she's, I think, probably in her 70s. And I feel like we need teachers that are elders. We need teachers that are elders that have worked in these things for many years, right? It's like the wise woman, right? And honoring and respecting the wise woman.
I love that. Yeah, I think like people who have been on the path longer, first, they expand me so much to see that like even as we like age, we still carry that youth, even if our physical bodies may not look it fully, but like they have such vibrancy in their life. And it also just shows me that I'm like, it doesn't just because we get older, because I think some people do fear getting older also. It's just like, oh, it's so beautiful to witness, because I'm like, wait, I'm still gonna have that badass life even if it's I've like definitely been attracting like more older women that have become friends because of where I moved. And I'm just like, oh, that's awesome. They're still doing everything that I do. And I love that because I mean, I don't fear aging necessarily, but it's nice to see. And it just like your physical suit is just a physical suit, but your youth is forever in essence. So
100%. And I think there's, you know, I'm going to go back to that shamanic thing, is that our lineage is the most powerful place for, it's not just, we always talk about generational trauma, but we don't talk about generational wisdom. And it's so important, you know? And so the people before us are carrying stories that heal. They're carrying so much richness from just living their human experience. You don't have to be you have to work in personal growth to also be a vessel of wisdom, right? And there's this woman that I get massages from, and she's incredible. And something that she does when she does this massage, so she works a lot with shamanic medicine, and she's definitely older. But every time she does a massage, she speaks to me, and she's like, always talks about how she's the wise woman, and she's holding the wise woman within me. And it almost feels like this initiation to tapping into my wise woman. And every time I get with a massage with her, it feels like such an honor. This is ritual as well, right? Ritual, there's ritual in older women supporting younger women, and this kind of mentorship that we've lost as well, that's very, very tribal. So yeah. And I also, quick little thing on kind of aging as well, I suppose I come from my father is 73 and he still runs 10 kilometers every single day. He is the most physically fit man I've ever seen. So I think my perception of aging is completely warped, because I look at my dad and he's like, you would never guess he was older than 50. And so it's in the end, our beliefs do shape a bit of our reality as well, and how well we look after ourselves and all of these things. Nothing's possible.
100%. And I feel like, I mean, I'm grateful like that I have my Guatemalan culture, because I feel like I learned a lot from my grandma and grandpa, and especially like living with them right now, I'm just like seeing this whole other way of being. And they're also like my grandpa is 73, but also doesn't not look it. My grandma is gonna be 70, also doesn't look it. Like you would just think that they're my parents, to be honest. But I think there is so much wisdom in that. And then they also just, I feel like, well, in a lot of other cultures, not here in the States, not very much, like some people do, but like they work with nature also. And my grandma has like this little garden, and sometimes she'll like pull little things and just like make these teas and be like, drink it because it's good for you. I'm like, okay, I'll drink it, you know? And there is so much that I'm just like, I need to like I want to tap into that too, because I think we all, I can't remember who told me this, but like human in Latin, like hue or something means from the earth also. So it's like we are vessels from the earth. And I thought that was really beautiful. And I was like, that wisdom, that old school wisdom, that like, it's not lost. I just think not practiced as often.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful, actually, kind of noticing that it's not lost. And I think we're remembering to go back to it. I do think there's more and more people wanting to practice these things and learn. And so it is still here. And so it's just kind of, as the world changes, adapts, changes priorities, and we'll see.
I know we're definitely in a massive collective shadow transformation all over the world, which is so like, it's scary in moments, but also so beautiful to witness the change that is happening. So I am excited to see where our world goes. But I mean, that is a question I was going to ask you, actually. It was just like, where do you see our world could be 5 years from now?
Wow, what a big question, Shay. It's very, very, very hard to know, because there are so many timelines that are opening up to us. I can tell you where I hope we are in 5 years. There's so many ways to look at what's happening, right? And there's so many different perceptions. And I think it's almost like when you shake up a snow globe and the snow's everywhere and you can't see anything clearly, it's very hard to see, and sometimes we have to wait for the snow to settle. And I do really feel that we're in a slow go that's being shaken up. There's so many stories. We have people 100% believing what's in the media. We have people that are 100% into conspiracy theories to an extreme. I think both are extremes. I think both are, you know, one is completely blind, and to another point, it's kind of almost, there's the spiritual bypass, isn't it? And I think that's a human shadow, is in not looking at what's happening because, you know, I'm peace and love and light, or whatever. So it's almost finding the in-between path, right? It's what I think. And I really hope, and I really do truly believe that this is a time where all of our shadows are coming up, right? On a collective level as well as a personal level. So everyone that I know really that has been doing this work has noticed in these last couple of years, there's been a lot of shadow work, right? And if you don't look at something, you're like, yes. If you're not willing to look at something, it's going to show up in your relationships, it's going to show up in your business, it's going to show up in any area of your life, you know, with your kids, with it doesn't matter. And I do feel like we're collectively being forced to look at things. And some of those things is how we run our world, right? From over farming. Over farming for me is a metaphor of how we live, right? Over farming is that we want more now. All of us are in, we want more now. So instead of blaming over farming on the world, it's learning to take it home. And so if we all learn to take these things home, where am I over farming myself? Where am I burning out because I'm over farming, right? Where am I, you know, it's so easy to be like, oh, the politicians are greedy, but where am I greedy? Right. And I think if we all start taking things home and we all start shifting consciousness, in 5 years' time, we could be coming through this in a very different looking world. What's it going to look like? I have no idea. But that higher vision, which is the one that I want to share, let's not go into like more fear. We've had enough of that.
No.
Is the higher vision is that there's some big changes made. And I think, I mean, astrologers have got a different take on it as well, haven't they? They've kind of said that the dark time that we're ending now before we enter the Aquarian age. Do we know if that's true?
I have no idea.
We'll see. We'll see. But all you can do, in my opinion, and now more than ever, is connect to your personal work, because it's not just what you're doing in your life, it's actually shifting the consciousness for humanity, right? It's actually doing your shadow work. And I think now is the most important time in my life, which isn't that long, you know, in comparison to the life of the world, is really the shadow work and actually taking responsibility for what you can in your area, but also not going to an extreme where, because we can try and take it all on, right? And we can try and feel every single huge thing that's happening, and that can be also far too overwhelming for our nervous system and actually lead to illness in itself. So it's again this balance, and that's for each person to find. So I don't know, Shay, where do you see the world in 5 years?
I completely agree with everything you said too. Like I mean, here in the States, it's felt very intense in moments also. I mean, I know it has like everywhere, but I mean, I think there was a period of time where we were a great reality TV show for the rest of the world to watch. And it's like, it's just so crazy, because I agree. I think like all of it is happening for us as a collective. And that's like a really hard pill to swallow sometimes, to think that like, oh my God, all of this awful stuff is happening. But I was reading a book, Existential Kink. I don't know if you've read it yet, but it's amazing. And anyone watching should read it, because he has a line in there that talks about like, of course, we're talking about a lot of humanity issues also. So it's like, we don't wish illness on anybody ever, but on the collective subconscious, people believe and perpetuate those fears or these really awful things happening in the world. Because she's like, if you're seeing it happen and it's being had in the world, then that's evidence of wanting it, even on some sort of really fucked up level, because it is. And so there are people who maybe over the course of time have carried these very deep, messed up subconscious beliefs, and that could be what's happening. So I think it's so true that if we can not turn a blind eye, because I think that's part of the uncomfortability, is just like actually looking at what's happening and being like, no, I don't wish upon this, but what can I do within myself to not allow this to continue happening? And that is, it's scary. And I also think it can be really, really beautiful, because I look at my own personal spiritual journey where it felt like that, where I was like, it was really ugly. I don't want to look at my own life. Mm-hmm. But when I did, I see how I like blossomed into something. And so I'm really holding the vision that our world is also going to blossom into something. And I believe humans do exist for a greater purpose that is meant to bring beauty and love. It just might have to go through some icky mud for a little while, and we'll see what happens. I have no idea what it could look like. I do think that it's changing though, and I can feel that it's mostly moving into the right direction, because it's waking people up, and that is important.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, like waking people up isn't usually just like everything's going really great. No. It's usually a big shake, right? So, you know, for you said it when you start going through this, it's really painful. For me too. For most of us, it's this really, really painful process. And so we're actually kind of going through a very big shake collectively. And similarly to you, I'm holding the vision of a healed world, right? Because we're all daydreaming our world into being. And so the more people that are holding that vision, are holding that note, the more likelihood that we end up there. But on the way, there are some powerful lessons. And even one of the powerful lessons, and this is going to sound maybe a little morbid to all of you, but it's that a lot of people are dying. And I'm not saying this is good, but I'm saying this, that we need to start talking about death in our society. Because when my mum passed away, the biggest realization for me was it was the loneliest time in my life, because I was like, there is no support for the dying or those that are caring for someone dying, because it's something that makes our world feel so uncomfortable that we do not have anything in place. And honestly, and this is kind of a sign of bad things happening actually being for good reason. My mom's passing made me into a better person. My mom's passing was necessary for my life's journey. My mom's passing was the most beautiful as well as deeply painful thing that ever happened to me. And one of the most beautiful things was it made me sit with death. And that transformed the way that I live. And that continues to transform the way that I live, right? And when we start living like we are mortal, or start living that way, I feel that you naturally start living more on purpose, because nothing is, you can't take anything, you're not taking anything for granted anymore. You're very, very aware of how much it is a gift. And so I think a lot of us are getting very difficult lessons in these areas, and this is why the personal work and leaders and mentors are more important than ever, for you to be able to take that journey. And it's kind of what I mentioned at the start, from pain to actually the potential in that situation, right? What you're meant to learn, what you can take from that, what's the gift. And that's not saying that the pain, to feel less pain, that's not bypassing the pain, but it's actually being with it so you can transform it.
So powerful. I agree. And it's exciting to see where things could potentially go, even despite everything. So thank you so much for sharing that. And what is I always like to come back to like a mantra with anything that I'm experiencing, and especially lately. And so what is a current favorite mantra that you always turn to?
You know what? Some people have got all of these really elaborate mantras. I'm going to say mantras, I was going to say it in an American accent. That is not the way that I speak. Mantras. Literally, I approve of myself. Like because really, sometimes it's. I'm a true believer in simplifying. 100%. Maybe that's a projector thing as well, because I can't cope with over complexity.
So it's like, that's too much energy.
simplify. I approve of myself. Most of the things that come up for us in relationship, in actually going towards our dreams, creating a life that we desire, which is actually what I really teach people to do, the biggest block you see is some form of not approving of yourself, right? Of not enoughness. And so I approve of myself is kind of a mantra that is applicable to any area of my life, whether it's like I'm stressed at work or my house is a mess and I feel anxious that my house is a mess, or a bigger issue, maybe my relationship where I didn't handle something like I would want to, and you go into guilt. What I'm saying is that it's always the first step, isn't it? You know, approving of yourself. And sometimes I love myself feels too big of a step for people to take if they're not in that space. I approve of myself is easier to say and actually believe it, because it's not about what you say, it's what about you, what you believe.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because at the root of most things is that self-acceptance. Like you can accept yourself in the anger, you can accept yourself in the mess. Yeah, I like that one. Ooh, I'm gonna remember that.
It's like 3-4 words, so it's a simple word to remember.
Yeah. Whenever I get overwhelmed, I'm just gonna remember your voice.
Exactly. Literally like that. I approve of myself, I approve of myself, I approve of myself. Okay, now I'm in this space, I can go forward.
Yeah.
And you know what? My partner's really showed me this, because his self-talk, and he's done a lot of work, is a lot better than mine. I'm going to be honest. I've had to do a lot of work, but I come from I'm very, very perfectionist. I've got 5 planets in Virgo. I've been high achieving my whole life.
I never noticed that. Me too. No wonder why. I never knew that. I was like, I know we're both projectors. I know we have there's so many similarities, but yeah, like literally my Mercury, my Venus, my Mars, all of it is in Virgo, basically. It's so bizarre. But yeah.
So you feel me on this then?
Yes.
You get where I'm coming from. Virgo is beautiful, but also exhausting.
Yeah. Because it's
my Venus is...
Yeah, everything needs to be planned. Everything. Do you know what? When I started dating my partner, I bought him a schedule, because he's like double Pisces and all of this water, and it made me feel anxious. So I was like, baby, I love you, here's a schedule. And so that now sometimes he organizes just to make me feel better. But what was my point of talking about organization and the Virgo-ness? Self-talk. Yeah.
And so naturally, because of so much Virgo, it's that my self-talk is very critical. Also, my father was very critical, so my inner critic is wild. And then all these other tendencies of being, and then also a business owner, right? So there's kind of all of these things kind of and he is so soft with his self-talk, so soft and so accepting. And for me, it's been mind-blowing and super beautiful. And the biggest thing that I see in just things in his life working and him feeling good is this deep approval he has of himself. And when crisis happens, that first thing he goes into is kind of approval and acceptance of where he is. And that's really inspired me to because seeing the difference actually between him and me, and in just that small self-talk, is just unbelievable. And so I'm super grateful for the people that come into our lives that teach us things by just being who they are, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing?
It's the one of the best feelings. Just be like, oh, because it just gives you, it's like the universe sends you these angels to just expand you into being like, oh, I can give myself that permission too.
Exactly. Look at that person accepting themselves, and they haven't even done the washing up, and they haven't washed their clothes this week, and look at them being happy and being fine. Maybe I can accept myself and not have everything perfect and in control, you know?
100%. Yes. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom with us today, Hannah. I think there's so many juicy nuggets that people are going to take away from it. One last and final question is, what would you like to leave everybody watching this show with? Whatever feels still alive and present, whether that's a piece of advice or whatever's transpiring for you.
The thing that I really want to share that's kind of coming through that I want to leave people with is that life is so much more expansive than they tell us when we grow up. Life is so rich and so beautiful, and there is so much potential to play with if you're willing to take full responsibility and ownership for everything that turns up in your life. There is just, I think these are the two biggest things in my journey, is that learning to take responsibility for everything showing up in my life might feel painful initially, but when you do, you realize that you can change anything, most things. And that all of those things that you think that are dreams or impossible are possible. But the first step starts with this really deep, beautiful commitment and responsibility to the self. I think that's what I want to leave people with.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. And where can people find you if they want to work with you and connect with you?
So if you want to work with me, you can hop onto my Instagram. I haven't actually announced this yet, but we're going to be doing a 3-day immersion with multiple modalities and multiple teachers towards the end of May. It's going to be super powerful, and we're going to be exploring lots of things like emotional release, psychedelic breath, a lot of tantric practices, embodiment practices. My partner will actually be teaching on the integration of the masculine and feminine, and it's going to be really, 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 really special. And apart from that, if you want to hear more about what I'm offering, you can hop onto my Instagram, Jana Bartlett Alonso. Jana spelled with a J. So that was my Spanish mum, Jana. I think she will share links. And just, drop me a question, send me a message. I love hearing from you and the downloads that you get and kind of hearing about your journey and your story. So please don't feel afraid to come and just connect. And we'll be sharing the immersion details soon. And I have one space left for a 1-to-1 that will be closing by the end of this April, and I won't be opening again until October. So if you are watching this and this is something you desire, get in touch soon, because they go fast always.
Yeah, so exciting. Definitely connect with Jana. Of course, all of this is going to be in the show notes so that you have quick access to it. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you took away from it down in the comments. And thank you so much for being here with us today, Jana. Have a beautiful day, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Shay. I've really enjoyed it. Ciao.